pagers as well. So if they stop being a part of the fire department, then they would hand in their pagers plus the green light, and if not, then they would be the billed for those items that don't come back. So if it was the pager, and they owe money for those if they don't return them.
Yes.
And so he was saying that same policy would be applied to the green lights, and but it's not in writing. So.
Well, I believe the fire department's policy would be in writing. He would.
Well, for the meeting.
Yes, yes, okay. Councillor Panasic, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I'll just add that I think it's a good idea, but I just don't know if the general public would know about this. If somebody's approaching with a green light, like I wouldn't have known about it if I wasn't on the council about this policy. That's my only thing. I think it's good, but that would be my only concern.
Administration?
Just to let council know that when the county initiated this, they did lots of advertising through the radio station, so I would imagine Mr. Melnick could be doing the same procedure as to get the word out to the general public that this will be happening. So,
Councillor Corley?
Myself, I think it's a good idea. It's just an education timeline from the time they get installed and put in and start using them. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions coming back to us, but questions are good. So I think between their education program they got for advertising, and I think it's a tool that might help. I think it's a positive for myself.
Councillor Gilroy?
I'm definitely in favor of it. I've seen the advertisements in the newspaper by the county. So the questions I would have had, I had three of them, one of which Councillor Danaka talked about, and that is what happens when they leave. Are they returned? You answered that one. Where would it say that the green lights are the property of the High Prairie Fire Department, as opposed? Because I think it should say something to maybe even if it's in the fire department regulations.
Councillor Long, if you'd like to answer that.
Again, Chief Melnick would make the firefighters responsible for returning and for taking care of the lights as well as the radios. And so I'm sure that there will be policies in place that'll just mirror what they have when they sign on with the radios. It'll just include the lights as well.
Okay, and my other question is, what would happen if it's used by a non-firefighter?
Administration?
I don't know how a non-firefighter would get them because they're issued through the fire department. So
They borrow their dad's car?
Ken's the one that would issue.
No, seriously.
That's true.
Teenagers borrow their parents' car. I mean, it is a possibility of happening, and so what is the result of having a person borrow somebody else's vehicle that has a green light in it, and they decide to
Drive around.
move traffic so they can get through or whatever?
Can we? We don't have a policy on that. It would be very similar to them borrowing their parents' pager and then listening in to all the fire calls that are being transmitted, because that's basically what the pager does, is transmit all the fire calls. So I think a responsible firefighter, it's kept in the car. I would imagine that it would be in their own vehicle, and that they would be telling their children that this is not a toy at this point. So sometimes we have to wait for an incident to occur at this time before we can really move towards doing something about it. And it's not going to be a life or death situation. People who are here still have to follow all the rules of the road, and therefore the police, if they're speeding, will stop them. So there is, it basically, that was the concern I had, was really what difference does it make whether they had a green light or not, because they still cannot speed. But have Councillor Portley first, and then the administration has a comment. Councillor Portley?
Just basically saying, I was going to reiterate the fact that it doesn't give them the right to speed. It just gives them, lets the general public know that they are trying to get to the fire hall in a beeline motion to please move over. And that's all it was for.
Administration?
And I talked to the fire chief Melnick about this, and I guess he's gonna try to pound it into his guys' head that, you know, this doesn't give you that right to, you know, go around traffic, speed through or whatever. You know, you have to beware also for them, so he's aware of what, you know, could possibly happen, you know, once some of these guys are given these green lights, so it's a bit of education on their part too, so, and we've discussed that, so.
Okay. So for the chair, I can now turn it over to the chair. Yeah, I'll turn it over. Since we deal with this issue, then I will relinquish the chair to our chair. We have two options here, Councillor Tanaka. You can withdraw your motion, or we can vote on it. It's voted. It's completely up to you. Do you want to go ahead with the vote on the receive for information?
I'll let it stand.
All right. All those in favor, would you like it read back? The motion? Anyone want the motion read back? No? Okay. The motion is to receive for information. All in favor? We are voting on the green light. Given the motion is, I should have had it read back. Could you read the motion back?
That council received the flashing green lights bylaw 11, 2016 for information.
Okay. All right. All in favor of receiving for information? All in favor of... Well, I'm giving the next, we're going to redo the vote. All in favor of receiving for information? And opposed? And the motion is defeated. Councillor Long.
That council give first reading to bylaw 11-216, displaying date of June 2016.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And second reading, would you like to, Councillor Long?
That council gives second reading to bylaw 11-2016, this 28th day of June 2016.
All those in favor? Opposed? And seeing how that was, the motion will not be unanimous, or the second reading was not unanimous, it is tabled for the next meeting, or pushed forward. And I am now relinquishing the chair to Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Mayor Cox, and sorry I'm late, guys. Public Works, welcome. Councillor Gilroy.
I make the motion that council receive the June 2016 Public Works Report as presented for information.
Thank you.
No, I can talk loud enough. I'll try. I'm used to yelling. Basically, it's been a busy month of May. We've, well, May and June. When this report comes out, it has to come out in time for the end. We've completed the crack ceiling. The new river pump is here. I'm a little nervous about the one that's in the water right now from the flooding. We'll see what happens when the river goes down and we can get at it again to have a look, see if there's any damage to it. So it's a good thing the new one is here. Line painting has started downtown. I think you've probably seen the lines. Contracts on 50th Street are being prepared. Ruel Brothers have supplied the bonding assurances that we need preparation and all of that. The bathroom playground is being installed this week. The underground services are in now. It's a matter of building a pad for it to sit on and then landscaping the back. The fence at the back of the arena is completed. Well, not quite. There's a few touch-ups that have to be done, but it's back up again. And I'll entertain any questions. time the release for the RFP has been, 3 companies have inquired about the RFP at St. Andrews and 47th Street so far. And the advertising is in the paper this week.
Anybody have any questions? Councillor Gilroy?
I noticed it says continuing work on servicing the campsite. That's the old Lions one that's by the hospital. How's that coming along?
I think there's 7 lots that is serviced there now, and we go out there when we don't have other pressing items to take care of. We've got some serviced out there, they're being occupied. There's a few more to do on the west side. And the directional drill to the sanitary on 52nd Ave.
Councillor Long?
There were some mold issues in the washrooms there too, and the showers. Was that addressed?
I'm not sure. The girls have been going out there 3 days a week and cleaning.
Perfect.
And I'll have to go check myself. I haven't.
Carrie?
I've been using the washroom and the shower on a regular basis, and I personally didn't see any black mold. The stripping that was there was black, and the glue that attached it to the cement wall was black, but it wasn't mold. At least in the women's can. I didn't go into the men's.
Thank you. Turn off the mic.
Any other
With
questions?
all due respect, Councillor Long, you asked.
I sure did.
Councillor Panasic?
One question and a comment, but is our water reservoir full now that we've had all this water? You've been
No, it's not full. It's about 3/4 full. We can't pump when the river is as high as it is, because you're just going to silt in your settling pond. So we had a good portion of it filled before the heavy duty rains, and we haven't pumped since. So, but I am no longer concerned about filling it.
And just a comment, I noticed you, and I don't know if I saw it on here, but you did some more street sweeping and stuff. That was great to see.
Yeah.
That was good.
Councillor Gilroy?
Is it possible as well just to double check, or have your staff double check a couple of the walking paths for the trees that are on the town property that hang down so low that it's about 6 feet from the ground? Because there are some that are hanging a little
Is this
low.
the walking trails?
No, these are main streets.
Okay.
Like,
We can.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We'll vote on his report. All those in favor? Carried. Public hearing minutes, June 14th. To have a motion. Councillor Dinacker.
Make a motion that council approve the minutes from the June 14th, 2016 public hearing as presented.
All those in favor? Carried. Minutes of regular council meeting. Have a motion. Councillor Panasa.
I move that council approve the minutes from the June 14th, 2016 regular meeting of council as presented.
Any additions or corrections? Councillor Gilroy.
On 341, motion 34116, just it has that the Councillor Gilroy council direct administration red letter on behalf of the committee to Big Lakes, explain the intention of appointing. It was the intention of the original letter inviting them, not of appointing. We wanted the clarification because you had asked, the original intention was to ask them to be part of the Accord Committee. And so it was not the intention of appointing, but the intention of the original letter inviting them to sit on the Accord Committee.
Participating?
Participating on it, yes.
So instead of appointing, you should say, participate
It just seemed too direct that way.
Anything else?
I did have a question, was the letter written?
Did you copy? Did you email?
I sent it to you to look at.
I got a copy of Kalita's amendment
Yeah.
letter, but this one says that administration will be writing
I sent the letter.
to
I think we did.
the county.
We
Thank you.
You did, okay, all right.
Was the letter funny or was it actually?
What did the letter say? Tammy Kalita's letter.
I'm sorry, it was from Tammy Cletus letter. She wrote the letter to the county?
Yeah, her signature was on the
No.
bottom of the letter.
No. The one that the Accord, like,
For the Accord.
for the Accord, and then Brian wrote one explaining everything after.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So are we happy with the amendment?
I move that we do it with, as amended.
Okay.
Another
Anything else?
question. The big rig event, I guess we're talking about amendments.
Is there anything to?
No, I'm not amending, I was just wondering what happened
Oh.
there.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so where do we have questions arising?
That would be in the action items.
Oh, it would be in the action items, good, yep, no problem.
No more things.
That I have.
Okay, everybody good? All those in favor? Carried. Special council meeting, June 20th. Councillor Long?
For the minutes from the June 20th, 2016 special meeting, council as presented.
Any comments, submissions, deletions? Mayor Fox, do you have something? Oh, sorry. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Property tax grant relief, page 27. Anybody have a motion? Councillor Panasic.
I move that council authorizes a tax grant in the amount of $17,377.20 to be waived for the High Prairie Seed Cleaning Co-op tax account, roll number 405342.
Comments? Mayor Cox.
After I read the agreement, and it refers to Schedule A on 4.1. Each year, the town shall provide property tax relief grants to the co-op for the properties after the manner illustrated in Schedule A. I then go to Schedule A, and I see that the last line says, forgiveness of municipal portion, and it appears, the way I read Schedule A, that it is only $2,831 that were anticipated to be forgiven in 2009. It appears from looking at Schedule A that it was the school levy, the recplex, the Heart River portion that was the amount that we were to forgive. That's in direct contrast to 1.2, which says the municipal portion shall mean the amount of property taxes levied. I just bring this to your attention that there is a problem with this agreement. However, we only have 3 more years to live with it. But maybe that was not the intent of council in 2009 when this first came up, that maybe they had thought they were giving the school tax, recplex and Heart River portion.
Terry?
Having read a lot of the spreadsheets that were done by the previous treasurers, the way that I read this, using their mindset, as you can see in that line, it has a big 0 where the municipal portion is. And so that's what they meant, was the fact that municipal portion would be 0 in the second column.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what they're saying, that all the rest of these stay the same, but
Yes.
the municipal portion is forgiven,
Correct.
and that's why it's 0.
Yeah.
All
I've
right.
worked enough with those previous treasurers' stuff, so I know.
That was the only question I had.
Counselor Tanaka.
When are we done with this? 2018, okay. Now, I know when we first dealt with this, when we were first on council, the agreement can be amended from time to time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we had always tried to find out when their board meeting was so we could discuss this, and it just never ever transpired. I'm wondering if there's a possibility, because their AGM or whatever would be probably coming up here in September, October, if it's worth our while to look at, by mutual consent, to amend some of this.
Mayor Cox.
I actually think that that's probably a good idea, because and I'm not sure if it says in the agreement, but if we could get a copy of their financials, I would be interested to see what the dividends are that are being paid to the shareholders. Because if they're paying dividends of something like $5,000 to each shareholder, that's a substantial amount that they're doing on the backs of the ratepayers of the town of High Prairie. So, again, I'm not sure if that is public information or if it isn't public information. But I would be interested to know how much of the dividends are being paid to shareholders.
Counselor Gilroy.
I know this may be a little premature at the same time, knowing that we put up with the, not put up with, but we work with the deal that's been made for till 2018. I'm thinking that we should also be looking at considering a new deal ahead of time and not wait until like the last year. So maybe we can start even putting some feelers out to see what kind of newer deal we can get as well.
Counselor Panasik.
The new deal will be they pay full taxes.
It's still a new deal.
Well, it's not, it's what every other person pays, right? That's not a separate agreement. They just don't have a separate agreement that waives it in the future. So they will pay full in the future. That's, and you know what, I think we could meet with them, but as any company, they're just going to say, no, it's not mutually agreed upon, right? We signed this in good faith, and why would you guys want to go back against it? Like, I totally agree, and I think this wasn't a good agreement at the time, or it was, you know, for 10 years. I don't have a problem with some tax relief, but a 10-year tax relief of that much, it's, you know, $170,000 over the 10 years, or 180. That's a big tax relief for any one company.
Mayor Cox.
But in saying that, really it got the seed cleaning plant to locate in High Prairie. I understand why the council of the day went with this. I think it could have had another clause in there, and at that some point saying, we need to review this on a biannual, every 2 years, to actually take a look at the books. And that is because there's no mortgage left on that. And that is what really piqued our interest as to, can they afford to pay the taxes now? Maybe they, before when they had a large mortgage, I understood why we gave them tax release. But now it's a question of, if you can afford it, then you should be saying to us, you know, thank you for your help. You did very, you know, we wouldn't have got as good as we did. We are happy, et cetera, and now we're ready to become corporate citizens of the town.
Mr. Martinson.
Just to let council know, it's my belief that before the seed cleaning plant moved over there, they had a location across from where the new hospital site is now. And I think part of that is the council at the time asked them to relocate out there, and part of the relocation was the transfer of land. And I think Peavine Media Settlement ended up with the property that they did own up out by the new hospital, and they relocated. They agreed to relocate, but part of it was the tax relief for the 10 years. So.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Carried. Mayor Cox?
Do we want to pursue anything at all regarding requesting finances for the seed cleaning, from the seed cleaning co-op? Or are we just going to bite the bullet for another 3 years? And I didn't make a motion, I'm just canvassing.
Councillor Danaka?
Well, I mean, we have the option, because it says in 3.1, the agreement may be amended from time to time by mutual consent. I mean, it doesn't hurt to meet with them. They could tell us no, or they could say, well, no, we're still poor, or whatever their excuse is.
No. I'd like to make a motion then regarding this.
Mayor Cox?
I move that we request administration to ask the seed cleaning co-op for a meeting, to arrange a meeting with the seed cleaning co-op and to ask them for backup to this information, background for this information, to provide us with their financial statements.
Any comments? Personally, I think that we made an agreement in the past that, well, this council didn't, but I mean, there's little value in making this company go through. They're not going to come up with financials that's going to convince them that they should pay us taxes. So, I mean, it's an opportunity for us to find out the financial well-being and to have this discussion. But, I mean, we all agree that it wasn't an agreement that we're happy with having to approve, year in and year out. But going forward, a huge lesson in how we should go forward and take a harder look at any sort of tax relief. I agree that the tax relief and the incentive was not a bad idea at the time to help them to make a decision to move. There was does anybody know the background of this? Was there any indication that they felt that they didn't want to relocate in the town limits of High Prairie? This has nothing to do with tax amount, right? Like, or mill rate, or being in the county would have been cheaper, because realistically, the non-residential rates are very, very similar. So we didn't make the relief because of that, right? Mr. Martinson.
I think a lot of it came from Mr. George Key, and he seen the old seed cleaning plant and as much chaff and dust and that was coming off of it, and he thought with the location of the new one being across from the hospital, that's dust and that would end up within the hospital. That's why he tried to make the deal to have them relocate out to the west industrial area.
Mayor Cox.
And the other part was the fact that it is a multi-million-dollar facility, and having it in our industrial park meant that after 10 years, there's probably another 50 years of life in it, we would recoup our taxes during the period of that. So, just it's a shock to any new council that comes on and does not know the negotiations that went on.
Councillor Kilroy.
If you look at that last page they gave us, it talked about the forgiveness on municipal portions. If you look at the last note on it, new property versus existing site, in a sense, we almost asked them to take on a levy of almost 4 times. They went from 27.55 to 82.60, according to the notes on there. So that's probably one of the reasons they also wanted it, because they were looking into a higher tax. Why would you want to move from one place to another and then get higher tax? So they probably wanted it as some of the offset to the extra tax they'd have to pay in the new location.
Actually, the reason that the taxes would have gone up so much is because it is a state-of-the-art facility. It's 4 times as big. It's, the other one was decrepit and getting to the point where it was going to be demolished. The size, acreage size is about 5 times, 6 times bigger for land. So there's a myriad of reasons as to why the new property is so much more than the old property. And in saying that, when they sold the old property, I think they probably did good on that one too. So they are sharp business people, there's no question about it. So.
Councillor Panasi.
Just with regards to going and meeting with them and getting their books, I don't think that they're going to agree to any change. And we're just going to be causing, you know, sort of ill will at the end of the day, in my opinion. I mean, they're not going to come up to us and say, yeah, we should be paying taxes, because we did ask them, was it last year or the year before, and they said, no, this is our agreement. So that's what they're going to say again. And as far as getting them to show us their books, I don't know if they will or if they have to. So I think it's just going to cause more ill will. I mean, I'd love to do it, but we do have the agreement, so I'm not sure if it's worth it.
And my final comment on that is those are farmers from the county, and it's definitely farmers from the county looking after their interests. We're here to look after the interests of our ratepayers in this town, and I think that myself, I feel that we at least have, our ratepayers at least deserve for us to attempt to speak with them as to, is this a fair agreement? So that's why I made the motion. And I'm not asking for them to open their books. I only want a copy of their financial statements, which probably, I'm not sure if I could get a copy from agriculture or anyone else that is dealing with seed cleaning co-ops. Maybe anyone that's, you know, anyhow. So that was my rationale.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Treasurer's report, page 34. I have a motion. Councillor Gilroy.
Okay, I make a motion the council receive the April/May 2016 Treasurer's Report as presented for information.
Welcome, Terry. Do you want to report, or do you want us to just ask questions if anybody has? You want to give us an update?
I think it's fairly self-explanatory unless somebody has any questions. And you'll have the June and the next meeting.
Councillor Nanaka.
It's not a question. I know, myself being part of council, I know I was aware of the tax letter that was being put in all the utility bills. I didn't get one.
Do you have any non-residential property? Only those with non-residential properties got the letter. People
Right.
just residents
That's right.
didn't need one.
My mistake.
No problem.
Mayor Cox.
As in our audit, we talked about receiving a copy of the management letter. Has that letter been received?
Yes, it has, and Brian and I will be responding to it this week, and a copy will be sent to all the council.
So we'll get the original letter and the reply.
Correct.
Mr. Martinson.
Just to let council know, when we met with municipal affairs at the Elks Hall, Terry and myself sat down with Darcy, who's, what was his secretary or whatever, and he questioned us on the letter that was sent out and that. So we basically explained to him, and he was writing notes and drawing pictures, and finally he said, you just take notes. But we explained to him what had happened to us, so. In his indication, Danielle didn't receive any calls of why the increase was there, so.
And he was grateful that we had given her the heads up prior to everybody calling.
Well, first, I'd just like if you could maybe show Vern how to use that mic there. So yeah. But just the other thing was you'd said in June we'll get, is that going to be the numbers to see where we're at for this year? Is that what you meant?
Everything.
Oh, okay, because I would love to get a look at, we're halfway through the year and I don't have any idea how we're progressing, so it'd be nice to see those.
It's hard to print off financial statements on some computer programs until you have all the year-end adjusting entries from the auditors put into the system, because some numbers will carry forward and you want to have it zeroed off for December. And I've been spending most of my time trying to close off the year, and it's this close.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of accepting a report? Carried. Thank you very much, Terry. Municipal internship budget proposal, page 36. Does somebody want to make a motion? Councillor Panasic.
I move that council approve the municipal internship program and forward it to the 2017 budget deliberations at a cost not to exceed $32,000.
Anybody have a comment? Question? Councillor Danaka.
Go ahead.
Oh, Councillor Gilroy.
Go ahead.
I believe that you were gonna say a little bit more about this one. Is this the one for the internship program? I thought you were gonna say a little bit something about this for us.
Do you have a comment?
Why we're doing it?
Oh, I could give you why I think we should do this.
Yeah. I believe you were going to give us something about this, and just want to know more about it.
Well, I can if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay, I just think that this is a good program, and I think it would, for a relatively low cost, get a good quality person in here to help with whatever administration would like them to do, and because you're getting a qualified person at a highly subsidized rate. Plus, and you can get them in either one of two areas, either in administration or in the accounting area. So whether we need some help in the accounting or if we needed some help with the administration, I know there's a ton of things that it's hard to keep up on things. It would give us a chance to maybe get ahead or on some of those projects that are backed up with some good help to help us sort of those things. Plus, we help train some young blood for the future.
Councillor Tanaka.
I was just when I was reading this. So is the 11,000 for expenses is like we're not responsible for housing them, are we? Okay. I can see the benefits to this, but I'm just wondering if we can afford the cost. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I have some concerns about, is this something that we really can afford, and if it's something that we really want to look at. Like, I don't know benefit-wise if it's, gonna meet what we're intending it to do.
Mayor Cox.
I think the municipal internship program probably is a good program. About two things I would need to know: does it have the support of both the treasurer and the CAO, firstly, and they can discuss as to what exactly they would expect this person to do and bring this back, because it is going to 2017 budget deliberations. And at that point, can we not decide not to have it or to have it, or do we have to apply for this, and then if we decide we don't want it, what happens?
Mr. Martinson?
I believe you have to apply, like, it's in April, isn't it, Sarah? When,
For the one that they're doing right now, you had to have applied by October 15th of last year.
yes. So what we were looking at is applying into, you'd budget this year, but it'd have to carry over into 2017. And then you'd make your application in 2017. And I think they start work May of 2017 and work their year then.
Yeah.
And when we did this RFD, we only did the internship program. So that was just for the administrator, and it's a 1-year program. But the treasurer position, I believe, is a 2-year.
They did a land planning one that was 2 years, and then
Yeah.
there was a treasurer one, but we're not big enough to have it.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have to have a population of over 5,000.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right too. So that's why we just looked at I give you background information on the internship, one. And it's only a 1 year.
Yeah, it's a 1-year program, and then if both parties agree, you can extend it for a 2nd year if you wanted to.
Did that clearly answer your questions? Because I think that you wanted to know whether or not if you approved it, that it could be, you could make a decision to not put it in the budget.
So if we say, yes, go ahead, and then in January, we do not approve it, the hiring doesn't take place until May anyways. So at that point, we can say, no, we're not going to go forward.
We need to have the money allocated for that program, so we decided to keep going with it. So.
Okay. And the other part of the question was, and I, again, take some time to decide, are you in agreement with this? And as an administrator, the CAO, because they're going to be working under you and probably somewhat under the treasurer, because it's a CAO internship, isn't it? Yeah, so the two senior administrative staff have got to decide, are they going to support this program?
We haven't discussed that part.
I could make a comment right away. I did work with an intern in Three Hills when I was there, and what they are supposed to be taught, even though they're going to be the CAO eventually at another municipality, they are supposed to be spending a month or so in every department. So they spend a month in taxes, a month in payroll, a month with the treasurer themselves, and they go around to land planning, everything, so they have a general overview of the whole position of a CAO, because a CAO in smaller municipalities does all those positions themselves. And so that's the training that they encompass. My suggestion would be to wait until budget deliberations. I can have the first draft to you guys at early October, and it would still give you time to put in the application if you like.
Mr. Martinson, do you see a value in the program, and you'd like to sort of see that?
I do, since I'll be leaving here hopefully in 2 years.
Councillor Danaka.
Okay, so basically the motion beyond all of our discussion, which we can have at a later date, is do we want to send this to the 2017 budget? That's what the motion is. So let's stop all the discussion and let's vote on the motion and move on.
But sending it to the budget or not depends on whether or not you see value in it, right? We have to have that conversation of whether we see any value in the program.
But when it comes to the budget time, that's when we can see the value, because they'll explain it to us saying administration agrees that we should have this in the budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of taking up 20 minutes of non-important stuff, because the motion is to send it to the budget.
So what are we supposed to, why is it even then a decision? Why doesn't it just come to budget? If we don't have any background on it, then it should just come to budget, right? Councillor Long.
As we approach 2017 and we're talking about $32,000, we've had hold the line sort of budgets. We've tried to reduce our taxes and mill rates. We've reduced our costs. 2017, I bet you we won't be able to afford to do that. And I've stated it right from the get-go, and I may be wrong, but my concern is that when 2017 budget deliberations come about, it's going to be really tight. And so I don't know if we can afford $32,000.
Mayor Cox?
I agree with what Councillor Tanaka has said, that the motion is to send it to budget deliberations for 2017. That discussion, now that I'm aware, we still can pull it back. I'm ready to call the question.
All those in favor? Recreation Board budget, page 39. Do I have a motion? Mayor Cox?
That council approve the Recreation Board operating budget of 568,145.50 from account 27176560 grants Recreation Board operating in 2016 to the High Prairie and District Recreation Board.
Comments? Anybody want to speak to it? Councillor Gilroy?
I just want to say thank you to the rec board for getting it to where we originally wanted it to be. And so I'm very thankful that they worked very hard on it, Lori Matthews and company.
Anybody from Recreation have anything to say? There you go, you guys did good.
They did work hard.
There you go. Good job, Arlie.
No, they did.
If you look at the numbers,
They did.
they did.
No, awesome. Okay, everybody good? All those in favor? Okay, McIntyre Park funding, page 47. Do I have a motion? Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mayor Cox. That council approved the expenditure of $45.63 for the revitalization of McIntyre Park project, and that the funds will be allocated from the GL 2-66-970-100. And in talking with our CAO, well, first, that's where that's at. And in talking with our CAO, those dollars would be coming from the green space.
Reserves
For green space. Yeah.
Anybody have comments? Councillor Panasic.
I'm just curious, is there a total budget for McIntyre Park, and is it just like 4,000 this week, and then next meeting it's another 10, and the next it's another 5? Like, is there a total budget so that we know what we're targeting here?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair question. And right now, what we're looking at is, my understanding is, and maybe Mayor Cox will be able to answer it as well, you're pointing out too.
Well, there's a budget on the back.
There's a budget
And-
on the back.
Right there. And so,
It doesn't have like a total, but it doesn't.
Break down all their
on your
costs,
backside.
right? The gazebo costs, and is
Yeah.
that not their budget?
Yep. And so, so right now, just looking at the sod and the trees, waiting to hear back from some of the corporate sponsors, apparently, for the gazebo costs. And I know that Beautification and Trish is working on some wrought iron benches being made from West Fraser, I believe, and also from the high school. They're doing some work as well, or in negotiations to get some benches made. So a lot of the things are going to be provided for, and that if not significantly reduced costs, then will be donated to the project itself. So really the only things now that we're looking at that I can see is the gazebo and some of the tables and some concrete finishing. as the outstanding things that I can see.
Councillor Gilroy?
Knowing that I'm fairly new to this whole thing, when you talk about the reserves for parks and that, it's a general pool that we don't have to actually use the stuff for the particular area that's redone. We can move it to one area in the town if we want to.
Mr. Martinson?
Them funds were allocated for, like, if you had to do a matching grant, say to replace the playground equipment back here, you could use them funds for a grant like that. So,
you can use it anywhere. It wasn't for a specific.
basically, yes, yes. Yeah.
Councillor Panasic?
Like I see the you know, the budget that they included was for the grant program or the enhancement program. Did they get any dollars from that?
Not at this point. They're still waiting for the paperwork to be processed in Alberta government.
Oh.
So at this point, no.
They haven't heard nothing back yet. It wasn't that long ago that they had submitted this.
That's right. So it's still.
But I do have a question, and I concur with Councillor Panasic. This amount, 4,563, really isn't in here as a cost, is it?
Yep. Right there.
Is it in the 3,000 and the 1,000?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, and that's why that's circled.
Yep.
Got it. So basically 4,500. Oh, so they are not expecting any more money from the town at
No,
this point?
At this point.
Okay, so that answers your question. They're not going to be coming back for,
Well, no, that's at this point. That's
Well,
a key thing.
Because some of this is being put towards as a sesquicentennial project as well. So if there's some dollars, we may be able to use some of the dollars that we have set aside already for sesquicentennial to put towards this as well. The gazebo costs are currently being discussed with two major developers here that are currently here in town right now, and waiting back from them. And then the concrete chess tables, we're still waiting to find out from, I'm not sure which person Trish was talking to, whether it was Dave Henderson or Devin Periski, or I'm not sure, for the concrete resurfacing.
My question would be, I mean, I can see that from this budget, and I don't know if that's the final budget, but that's another $10,000 or $14,000 from the town. Are they got any other sources of income, or is that just going to be coming to the town unless they get this grant?
That I don't know. I don't know how much the different grants are that were put out for. So I'm not sure that's through the beautification side. I know that Elks has donated some money as well. Royal Purple has provided some funds apparently through beautification but it's still a bit too early to tell. I don't foresee it coming back to the town for more.
How much is this grant actually for? Is it
The
just for the
original
$500?
19,000 something was the original grant.
50%.
Yeah.
Councillor Gilroy?
I really hate to be a wet blanket, but I think I'd like to have one of the key people from this actual project here to answer. I know
Trish is at the meeting every week. That we
I know, but I'm talking for the council here. Because I'm looking at this and I see Town of High Prairie, Town of High Prairie, Town of High Prairie, Town of High Prairie, Town of High Prairie. Two more you want for us, and then there's unknowns for the raised flower train project, and if you take it out of the sesquicentennial, that's come from the town again. And so I really would like to have someone who's not on council, I guess, but directly involved with this, trying to give us a little better explanation of all that funding with the possible sources they have.
Yeah.
Councillor Long?
Keeping in mind that when the idea to work on McIntyre Park was first brought forward, the park was in dire need of repair. The trees there were some that were at a 33% lean. They were widowmakers. And so, so the park needed that restoration work, or it was just an eyesore. And if we're gonna make that, so that's where that came from. So when the dollars do come asking for things like the sod, it's our park. But that being said as well, I know that they're working on trying to get as much grant funding as they can. And they've approached, I say they, beautification, but Trish is working on it. So they've approached people at the hospital as well, contractors there, and TD, and I don't know where else they've applied for funding, and provincial as well.
Mayor Cox.
Actually, beautification has a subcommittee, and Trish Long is the chair of that subcommittee, which deals with McIntyre Park, and she has a small group that she works with that are not beautification members, because we're only a small organization. She's gone out to the community and got some others. But if you would like Trish to come to a council meeting and speak a little bit more on it, she has a diagram and with as to what this thing is going to look like and when it's completed, and she's quite able to speak well. So we could invite her as a scheduled delegation to come and give and share the vision that she has presented to beautification. So, and also be aware that beautification does have a little bit of money left, and we would not expect that the town would be left hanging, although, as Councillor Long has said, this is the town's park. But that's our mandate, is to beautify, and that's what we're trying to do. So I would suggest we invite Trish to come to the next council meeting.
Any other comments?
I'd be satisfied with having her present when it's looking at this legal bill.
Yeah, okay, you guys ready to vote? You want the motion read back?
That council approve the expenditure of $4,563.50 for the revitalization of McIntyre Park project, and that funds be allocated from GL number 266970100.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Page 49, minimum tax. Mayor Cox.
The council received the discussion of implementing a minimum property tax for information.
Discussion. Councillor Panasek.
Yeah, I'd like to, I put this on and I brought it on just so that we could get some more research, and I would have made a motion of, council direct administration to review minimum tax options and bring them back to council, because I'd like to know if that's a viable option for our town and a way to keep implementing some growth here. But, and I say that only because I know I've talked with other communities, and specifically in the Falher, Donley, Jureville, they all have a minimum tax in their communities. And I know I talked a little bit with Teresa about it, and thought this is something that we should be looking at, or at least exploring for our town. But I did not think it was right for me to say, okay, I want you guys to do all the research on it, unless the rest of the council thinks it's a worthwhile venture. And my understanding of it is that you come up with a line of a minimum tax. Let's say that you say that it's $800 is the minimum tax. So regardless of what kind of property you have, you pay a minimum of an $800 tax. And the other communities have done that, and they're finding that it works. And the intent of that is sort of twofold, is that you get some dollars for empty lots that aren't being utilized, and helps pay the cost, because even the empty lots, you still have to plow the snow, you have to do all of those sorts of things. And if it's got a very low assessed value to it, then you don't get much in taxes. So that was my way of looking at it and thinking a way of sort of getting, looking at some tax dollars to come in. The other communities think it's working well for them since they've implemented it. And I don't know, Terry might have some more to add on minimum tax.
I would ask before we enter into a discussion on the minimum property tax that the backup information presented to us actually breaks down our tax rolls as to how many residents are being taxed that are assessed under 1,000 or are paying taxes. You would have to decide how you're going to work this, because if you're asking for a minimum tax, well, how many people are paying under 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000? So that we could actually see how many are we actually talking about here, and what is, if most people are paying $800, then, okay, now we know that the assessment, and again, you'd have to figure out how are you going to break this down to mean anything to us, because really what I want to relate this to is what's the cost of servicing this town? So for each resident, what would you say it costs the town to service that lot? And that administration would have to actually calculate out and say, on a lot, whether it's vacant and maybe it makes a difference if it's vacant or has a house on it, this is how much it costs to provide services to the town. So that's where administration has to do some work before they bring it back to us.
Is that not what our assessed value, though, would more or less give us? Like, the cost of servicing isn't taken into account when our assessor does an assessment on a property? I know an appraiser does. Sure, come Terry.
The mayor is correct in the regards that a spreadsheet would have to be done for the calculations, and I had to do one, and this is something that's very time consuming. It'll take a few weeks. I won't have a chance to do it till September, October, which is plenty of time for next tax season, but it won't be right away. In regards to the assessment is the value of the lot and the house. It has nothing to do with the services we provide. Now, the calculation to figure out how much it costs for each lot is different. We had to do it at the summer villages because lots, for example, snow plowing, like you were saying, snow plowing costs the same for every lot, whether it's empty or whether there's a house on it. However, garbage pickup is not applicable for lots that are empty. So the cost for that isn't calculated. So you have to look at all the costs for the municipality that affect each lot and put two different columns, one that's with the vacant and one that's with the buildings on it. And then you have to consider the ones that are for everybody, including the vacant, and that's the cost you have to use, not the ones that are just for the ones that are occupied.
And actually having that information then would enable us to understand and let people in the town know this is what it costs to run our town for each person. And if you're paying, if it's costing $2,000 per lot with a residence on it, and you're paying $645, well, then you're getting a sweet deal. So we're now, let's start talking about being fair to everybody. So we need the information before we can do anything.
Do we have just sort of an off-the-cuff number for our vacant lot, like an assessed vacant lot in an older area?
I can't give you it here in this town because I haven't had a chance to look at all the tax rolls, but in various areas there's different, like for example, the MD of Spirit River, when I was there, we had some lots, they were assessed value because they were partial rural. They were paying $1.73 for their taxes for the year. Another one was paying $2.97. The paperwork involved and the staff time involved was not efficient. We weren't even recovering our costs. So I implemented a minimum cost there of minimum tax of $25. I put it through council. It took me 2 years, but they put it through. And a few years later, they upped it to $50. In the summer villages, they have one summer village, which is about 800, and the other one's about 1,100. And that's what they charge each and every lot. Their incentive was for people to build on those lots by having a tax no matter what.
Yeah, we had talked about it before, and with it being like a vacant land tax instead of a minimum lot, but it was to encourage production, lot sales, so people just wouldn't hang on to lots, right? Mr. Martinson.
The reason I made this motion is because I did a little bit of background after talking with Terry, and I went and I pulled a couple of properties. I can't give you the names of the property owners, but the, without the levies and the RecPex levy, the seniors levy, the basic tax on a vacant lot is probably between $400 and $500 in town. And to me, at that time, looking at that, I believe that that was enough to cover the snow plowing. One lot was 50 feet wide and the other one was like 48 or something. So the assessment in these two properties were basically within $1,000. So that's why I thought that, you know, for $500 for the time that the street sweeper would go by it, say twice in a year in a residential lot, and a snow plow, whatever, 4 or 5 times, you know, for the grader to go by. I kind of felt like the $400 or $500 would be enough to cover that.
So that was just covering costs, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Councillor
I think before we make a decision, I think we need a lot more information on how this is gonna work, because for me personally, I don't own the lot, but I own the house. And we get garbage pickup. That's it. The town does not plow the trailer park.
No, that's private.
That's an agreement that they have with the trailer park. So we don't get, you know, the same services.
Yeah.
So I definitely think if this is something that we're really, really potentially looking at, we really need all of the information to make the right decision.
Councillor Panasic.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we need the more information, and that's why I wanted it on here, so we could make a motion to bring back more information and whatever timelines is suitable with administration. But just to have some more of the information to look into this. So that's what I wanted to do, is not to lose track of it, but to look into it and see if it's something that would be viable in our community and what it would look like if we did it.
Mr. Martins, on the tax assessment that you showed us, or you shared with us, is that non-residential or residential?
Residential.
And non-residential, would it be substantially higher, or is that pretty well the vacant lot rate for?
I did pull one commercial one, and it was considerably higher, but the property was a lot bigger, and that tax rate on that property was $1,800 a vacant lot.
Okay, so that would be our vacant lot tax, basically, more or less.
That was commercial.
Yeah.
That property.
For non-residential.
Yeah.
It should be clear, if we vote for information, is it just lost and we won't look into it anymore, it's just kind of done? Or if, you know, do we want to, I just want to be clear what we're voting on here.
Well, you can vote for information, pass it, and then you can make another follow-up motion immediately. I'll make it much easier. I'll withdraw my motion.
Do you have a motion, Councillor Panasic?
I do. I would make a motion that, I had it written down. Council direct administration to research minimum tax for High Prairie and bring it back to council.
I think you need to be a little bit more specific what you want.
Okay, what do we need then, Donna? What do we need?
Do you want
Residential, or you want residential and commercial?
Yeah, I'd like to see both and see where we're at. And I'm specifically think, much like what Mayor Cox was talking about, what are we, how many lots are under 1,000 or under 2,000, and what would it look like, and any suggestions of whether it should be implemented or not. That's what I'm looking for.
And you also want to know the minimum cost of doing services?
Yeah, that's a good, that would be part of it, the minimum cost of services.
And when you bring it back, it should be September or October. because it's gonna take, as the treasurer
Yeah.
said, it's going to be. So bring it back to an October council meeting. And do you have enough information now? That's why we record these meetings, because then they can play the recording,
Yeah.
and they can actually hear all the different things that we throw into
They're
it.
nodding their heads, yes.
We do that a lot.
All those in favor? Carried. CO's report. No?
No, we haven't.
Sorry. Missed that part.
You weren't here when we passed it. It's the golf course one.
Okay. Okay, it's probably still in here. Yes. Do we have a motion for the addendum? Mayor Cox.
The council received the recommendation to appoint a member of council to the Golf Club Committee for information.
Comments?
I will comment on why I made it for information. The golf club is a society. How they do their business really is up to them as a society. As long as they pay their bills, and they meet the agreement with us, which I believe they have. I'm not sure why we should be treating them any different than perhaps the curling club, which we do not have a member on, or the Elks, which I'm not sure if they're even in town boundaries, but it wouldn't occur to us to put a member on the Elks if anything happened. So I'm really hesitant to involve us in a organization that has really handled their own business at their own time.
Are you talking? Your light's on.
Oh, I wasn't.
Sorry. It's just a continual talk. Councillor Tanaka.
Did we not have, when we were discussing the golf course, did we not have or ask them that we wanted quarterly updates from them on their, like not necessarily like how the golf course was doing, because it's sort of our land in a sense. Because
In reality, not even in a sense.
because I thought we had discussed something to that effect, unless I'm mistaken.
I mean, this has been an ongoing thing. We used to have somebody on the committee, right? We had a representative, and I think in prior years, there's always been somebody that sat on the committee and reported back. So we sort of knew what was going on. So one, yeah, we own the land. Two, we co-sign for the credit. I don't think that there's a co-signer out there that doesn't know what's going on with the money that they're co-signing for. So I think that it's, just even when you consider that part of it, it's not just here they are, they're looking after it all by themselves. We're being asked to co-sign, and we're responsible for it, right? Because we own the land, we're also attached to the liability if anything actually happens. So I don't see that. I mean, it might have been maybe a hasty decision to decide to not have somebody on the board. I would think that we don't necessarily have the right to force our way on the board, but I think if it's a public meeting, we can authorize somebody to attend occasionally just to get updates so we can stay apprised of the situation. And if there was a problem in the future, we would know about it before it became maybe a big problem, or maybe we could offer some assistance.
If I recall right, there was more than a few members of the golf course organization that explicitly said in no uncertain terms that they did not need us on there, they did not want us on there, and they were concerned that they get wrapped up and tied up and put into, somehow mixed into the rec board. And that was their concerns when they talked to us here. That's what their concerns were when Councillor Emter had spoken to them. And they're doing a fine job, and as a liaison, it'd be perfect if they would If we appoint a liaison person, if there was something really, really vitally important, that they could contact that person, say, we'd like you to attend. Otherwise, if we have somebody on a committee, there's another $200 every time you go out and have to travel out there and go on to a meet. We don't need to be on that committee. We do not need to be. As a liaison, we got a problem, we'd like to address it, can you bring it up to council? Perfect, I'll do that for you. I don't need to sit there and figure out how much they have to spend on fertilizer next month. Don't need it.
I think Councillor Danaka is correct in saying that we did ask them, we were trying to wind down the amount of committees. One of that was cost related and time. And the golf committee was one of those ones that we thought, should we actually be on? And then we made the decision not to. But we did ask the golf board to present to us. And I don't remember how often that was supposed to be. At least annually we were supposed to meet with them. They were supposed to present.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it was a financial update or whatever, but being that we didn't have anybody on the committee, they would come quarterly and tell us, you know, how things went or what's progressing. They're doing this lagoon, or kind of just to keep us in the loop of what they're doing at the golf course, not necessarily having somebody on there.
Personally, I just think it's bad business to not know a little bit, or even offer support when you're the landowner and the co-signer on a loan. And like I say, even just that support aspect. But I agree, we can't just put ourselves on somebody else's board. Mayor Cox?
I bring you again to the procedure where once a person has spoken, until the other people of council have had the chance to speak, the next person does not speak again. We have 3 people here we have not heard anything from.
I didn't see anybody's arms up. Okay, Councillor Courtney.
Initially, when we were discussing this golf course issues in the past, my first initial feelings were I thought it was a great idea to have a person involved and have a person on the board there representing our needs and our ideals. As we get out there and at the golf course and looking around and doing what everybody does, I'm kind of thinking that I don't think we need to be there. They are a good club and they're looking after the course. They're doing improvements. I think it's well run. Again, I don't think they would appreciate us there. Whether they would like it or not, it's just it's one of those things where they're very. I think they're a confident board and they're looking after our needs. So I went back and forth on it, but my final ideal is that I think they're fine without us. I do think it's probably a good idea just to have an update, a 6-month, end of the year update, just to show where they're at, just so that we have an idea that everything is okay. But to actually physically go out and be involved in the meetings and be on the board and stuff, I don't think it's necessary for us to be there.
Councillor Panasic?
Yeah, there's I'm a little bit of mixed feelings also on this one, and that I know it's our property and we do have some investment that way, but I think when we're talking about covering the costs of a $60,000 loan and we have the property that's there, we're going to more than recover our any losses that we have to make in paying back a loan if that was needed. But it is good to have some of those kinds of questions being answered, and I see the copy of the insurance that they have, and that helps me to know that if something was to happen, they do have liability coverage. They're covering themselves, they're covering our town fairly well. I mean, because we're the landowner, it doesn't matter how much insurance they have. If there is an incident, they're still going to come after the town. We know that, right? That's the way the law works. They're going to sue everybody, throw the widest net and see what they can catch out of it. But so we do have a liability, but they're doing some due diligence, and I know they've had some issues in the last couple of years, but if we stick our nose in there, you know, pretty soon we'll be just taking it over, because they're not gonna feel that it's their responsibility. That's my concern. I don't wanna see us as a town taking over a golf course full-time. That would be a whole nother job. And I could see it going that route. That's my concern.
Councillor Dinac.
I just think that, for the amount of volunteers, and it's a select group of volunteers, it seems, that are doing a lot of the work out at the golf course, and I really commend them for the job that they have done. But I think if we could, it would be nice to be kept in, just being apprised of what's happening at the golf course, what improvements they're doing, or just to be in the loop, so to speak, that we know what's happening.
Councillor Gilroy.
I guess I'm the last to speak for a change. I'm a goalie, okay? Enough of that. Brian's laughing too. Okay, what I was thinking of how, for the last couple of years, this council has been contributing to the ski hill. And the ski hill at the end of June is going to be presenting a report for the money that has been spent there back to this council. They're supposed to be sending to all the municipalities that have been serving them, giving a 1-year report on what's happening. I see no difference here. As long as they give us I'm talking about the investment that we're making in it. They're competent people, and if they are accountable to us, especially in light of the fact that we're backing them, I think it's only appropriate that they should give us some sort of report, just like as well. FCSS gives us a report, and we help them out. I don't think we necessarily need to be on a board, but we do need accountability.
Okay. Are we good? All those in favor of receiving it for information? Carried. Councillor Tanaka.
I make a motion that that administration contact the High Brain District Golf Club and ask them to present council with do we want a yearly report or a quarterly report? Pardon me? Oh, an annual report at the end of their golfing season. What she said.
At the end of their golfing season.
Yeah, at the end of their golfing season.
Should we give them a date? By the end of December, we should see the report? Because they would have to wind up their season.
Doesn't this group have an AGM?
We don't know very much of the details, so why don't we just pick a date, and that way we have an idea. Then they know when to get it done to us.
November.
Okay.
November.
And they should have time to figure out.
An annual year-end report submitted to council by
Last council meeting of
November.
Last council meeting in November.
What's that?
The last council meeting in November?
The last council meeting in November.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. We will take a 10-minute recess.